Are you ready? Because the RedZone Podcast starts now. Welcome to episode 20 of the RedZone Podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Point du jour, and do you believe in miracles? Well, you should, because the Calgary Stampeders, after starting the season 4-11, losing multiple one-score games, are in the playoffs. Like it was ever in doubt. How did we get here, you ask? Well, the Stamps won the season series with a win against the Rough Riders a couple of weeks ago. They had control of their own fate, of their own destiny. Then they took care of business against the BC Lions with a surprising 41-16 victory in BC Place, which was incredibly surprising because we haven't put a full 3 phases of the game together. We haven't had that complete game just yet. And then the cherry on top was the Saskatchewan Roughriders imploding, losing to the Argos to lose 7 straight to end off their year, which secured Calgary third place in the West and a date in BC to face the Lions in the West semifinals. A rematch at that from 2022. And the Stamps have to feel pretty confident entering the West semifinals. Now, obviously, they have a game this week against Winnipeg. It won't mean anything. They can actually rest players, which is crazy to think about after how the season has gone and how they're trying to battle back. It really didn't seem like this game was going to be this type of way where we're going to be resting starters, but it is. And as I said, Calgary is going to feel a little bit of confidence entering this game because of what they did against BC, scoring 40 points against that defense, with Matthew Betts on that defense having 18 sacks on the year, which is a record for a Canadian, so great for him. And that offense is also electric. I mean, Vernon Adams, and then that receiving core with Dominic Rhymes, Lucky Whitehead, McInnes, you have Hollins. I think Hollins is 1,000-yard receiver. Same with Keon Hatcher. So they have a very good offense and defense. And you put up 41 points and only allow them to 16 points because Vernon went out at halftime or didn't play the second half because the coach, they rested him for the playoffs, which, I mean, you can take it however you want to take it. Vernon didn't really have the best first half, which may be a bit concerning due to you're going to the playoffs in 2 weeks. You want him to end off at least okay, and he didn't really have that type of game, and it was really a struggle. And they went down 17-3, never got even really close after that. But yeah, so there's a big confidence in the room for the Stamps entering the West semifinals. I'll be doing my playoff previews next week for this game, BC Calgary, and in the East semifinal between Hamilton and Montreal. Now let's get to our CFL prediction, my CFL predictions for 2023 that I made before the year, because there's some good, but there is a lot of bad in these predictions. So let's get straight into it, starting with the West Division. Let's start with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who I had projected at first place. And if you had any doubt of them falling off or not being as good, I don't know why you'd believe that, because they brought back a lot of their guys, Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira, and their receivers there. Well, there's no reason to be concerned because they are 13-4. I predicted them at 14-4. So that was a good prediction right there. They have 2 MOP candidates, as I said, Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira. I think the team announced today that they have nominated Brady Oliveira to be their MOP candidate. So Zach Collaros will not be winning it this year. We'll see who it's going to be. But again, Winnipeg, very good this year. What's the surprise? I mean, the path through the playoffs, at least in the West, will run through Winnipeg. Let's go to number 2. So not bad for number 1. Let's go to number 2, which is kind of bad. The Calgary Stampeders, 13-5 I had predicted, and 6-11. Not good. And why did I have them predicted at 13-5? Well, look, you can think, oh, well, you're a homer, Calgary Stampeder fan, you're going to have them predicted higher. Yeah, but there's some, we got to talk about it a little bit because last year they're coming off a 12-6 year and just had a bad playoff game. Jake Maier did. And, the whole team really did have a bad one. And BC was making every catch. Nathan Rourke played great, and they moved on. But Jake Maier, when he came in the regular season and became the starter for Bo Levi Mitchell, it really was good. It was efficient. They were getting wins. They weren't having those back-breaking interceptions. They were running the ball a lot, and that is really the opposite from this year. I mean, we haven't run the ball consistently. We're passing it 40 times a game, which makes not really any sense. And also, you can say, yeah, there's been injuries, but again, as I said all year, you can't really count those injuries because we've been in so many one-score games and we've been on the losing side of a lot of them. So you can't really count that as a factor. So a combination of all of that and not putting 3 phases together, not having that complete game, resulted in a 6-11 year, still making the playoffs, not second in the West, but a third place finisher. Let's go to who I had in third place, who is actually in second place. It's the BC Lions, who I had spot on at 12-6. The BC Lions, they're not going to go down. After last year being 12-6, they just swapped Nathan Rourke for Vernon Adams this year. That defense was still great. The receiving core was still great in Dominique Grimes and Lucky Whitehead and Mac Hollins. They were still going to be very, very good. Yeah, and 12-6 is a result of that. Matthew Betts on that defense. He has 18 sacks this year. That is the most by a Canadian, so great for him. And yeah, BC, second in the West, will face the Calgary Stampeders. So I had them facing each other. It's just who got home field advantage. It was BC by far. And we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. But anyway, so that's not bad. Not bad. Then you got Saskatchewan, who I had finishing fourth in the West. And they did finish fourth. But, I had them at 8-10, without the implosion. They finished 6-12. Lost 7 in a row, like I said before. And yeah, just not a great year. Trevor Harris went down with injury about midway through the year, and they never really got their groove. I mean, they won on Labor Day versus Winnipeg, which was kind of like the high. It's like, can we, get a winning streak going and make the playoffs? Like, because Calgary was down at this point, and if you're Saskatchewan, you just keep winning games and you get to that playoff spot very easily. But instead of doing that, they lost 51-6 the previous week in the Labor Day rematch in Winnipeg, the Banjo Bowl, if you will, and never got things going back, never got back to their winning ways after that. So 7 losses in a row, not great, and it let Calgary an opportunity to slip into the playoffs and get that third spot. And finally, Edmonton, the Edmonton Elks, who started the year off 0-8. I had them projected at 5-13. They finished at 4-14. So about spot on. After the 0-8 start with Taylor Cornelius, I didn't really think there was any coming back from that. And there wasn't. I mean, they brought in Trey Ford. If only they did that in week 1, maybe this season would have been different. Maybe they would have even been over 500. Who knows? Because there was a trade Ford hype there near the end of the year or near Labor Day about. And you can only imagine if they started him in week 1 what their record could have been. But due to that 0-8 start, it really derailed their season and kind of got them where they are at now, which is 4-14. and not making the playoffs. Now let's head over to the East Division. And this is where it starts to get bad. Because in first place, I had the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And Hamilton, Bo Levi Mitchell just didn't play well this year. Had some good plays in there, but a lot of interceptions. I think through 4 or 5 games, he's now at like 10 interceptions, which is not great, which is not good at all. Even you'd think, okay, is he efficient? No, not really. I think he's under 60% on the year. And that's not going to get it done. And you need to be better than that. But, Tim White, he's been awesome this year. And that defense, at times shaky, but still, held their own. And they finish at 8-9. So not 11-7 as I predicted, but at 8-9 and third in the division. I predicted them first. So that was that was off. I was off with that one. Second in the East, I had the Ottawa Redblacks. Well, Jeremiah Masoli, super unfortunate, got injured again after just suffering an injury the year prior that kept him out for the entire year. It really sucks. I had them at 8-10, mainly because of Jeremiah Masoli. I still believe that he could be that guy in Ottawa, and we just haven't really seen it. I mean, he's been injured. Hopefully he can come back next year and, tear up the league, get Ottawa into the playoffs. And they had that Dustin Crum hope when Jeremiah Masoli went out for like 2 weeks where it was the Crum back and Crum Dog millionaire, but he couldn't get it done, and it lasted about as long as, their winning streak, because I think it was like 2. And then 7-game losing streak following that. So never got back on track with Dustin Crum after 2 weeks of fame. Boy, how the mighty have fallen. No, I'm just kidding, but not a great year for Ottawa. They're going to finish last in the East. In third, I had the Montreal Alouettes finishing at 5-13. I wasn't a huge Cody Fajardo / Jason Moss believer heading into the year after what I saw last year in Saskatchewan, the debacle, the sacks, 77 on the year last year, and it didn't really give me hope for this year for Montreal, but they've proved me wrong. They're now 10-7, one more game left. They've had very good year by Cody Fajardo. He's been finding Austin Mack, been finding those receivers, those breakout receivers, as I said, in Austin Mack. And that defense with bringing in Sean Lemon and Darnell Sankey, they just fortified it and made it even better to finish with a 10-7, or one more game left, but 10-7 and proving me wrong and finishing second in the Eastern Division. And then finally, the apology, which they keep proving me wrong and they keep making my prediction look like just bad, look like garbage, really. 5-13 I predicted for the Toronto Argonauts, last in the division. They have been historic. They have been the total opposite of 5-13. They're 15-2 right now. They could be 16-2, which is crazy to think about. They could be one of the best teams. Not only this year the best team, but like historically all time, if they can go out and win the Grey Cup. Because I can only tell you, 2016 and 2017 Calgary Stampeders having great records, but couldn't get the job done. So Toronto, you're 15-2, got to go finish the deal and make my prediction even look worse than this. Like right now, you got to finish the job. I didn't do playoff predictions, so thankful for that, because that would have been even worse. But that does it for my CFL predictions. Again, a bit of good, but a lot of bad. But that'll do it for this episode of the RedZone Podcast, episode 20. We'll be back in episode 21 for the previews, both previews in the CFL playoffs, and playoffs are right around the corner. So very excited for that. We are going to predict who's going to win these games, and we'll give you a whole lot of preview statistics. So I hope you are ready for that. But enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of October. Enjoy Halloween. And we'll be back next week to do those previews. But until then, peace.